Hi, welcome to Beyond Politics. I'm Catherine Clark. Ontario Conservative MP Corneliu Chisu was born in Transylvania, but emigrated to Canada in the early 1980s. Since that time, he's truly dedicated himself to improving the country that he chose. He is trained as an engineer, he has served as a soldier in the Canadian Forces, and now he is a politician. Corneliu Chisu joins me to talk about life beyond politics. Corneliu Chisu, welcome to Beyond Politics. It's really lovely to have you here.
Thank you very much.
When I was doing my research, I saw that you were born in Transylvania, and it occurred to me at that point that you've probably heard every vampire joke that's ever been.
Yes, and it is it's delightful to be on the hill. You have all the gargoyles, I feel like home.
You feel just like home. I'm sure that's why. Do people actually make reference to that fact, much like I've just done?
Not too much, but it is a very interesting issue that I was born in Transylvania, so I immigrated to Canada, so I have the accent. I have an accent which is very close to Bela Lugosi's accent. So, sometimes you need to bring some fun on the hill. Because we are every day we are busy debating politics and so on. But sometimes
gets a bit too serious.
Sometimes it's nice to also to laugh and to be funny.
Do you play it up then?
I don't need to play up too much. But sometimes the Halloween and so on. You need to make let's see to make people to be feeling good and so on, not necessarily embattled in cross the aisle fights and so on. And I think that we as members of parliament, we have a duty to the public, but also we have a life.
What have you done at Halloween?
So Halloween, I have a statement, a statement which was very close to, the count. So it was quite funny, and I think I received all good appreciations and so on, no criticism and so on, because I didn't exaggerate. But sometimes it's important for people to be people.
Yeah. Is it hard for people to be people on the Hill? Have you found that?
Well, sometimes it's very difficult because you have the across the line the politics and the issues which are bounded to the ideology of the opposition and ourselves and so on. But what I would like to see a little bit more serious talk and proposals from one side to the other and so on, not only just criticizing. You need to have counter proposals. And I think that we are there and elected by the people to do our job. And it is a great responsibility.
I'd like to talk a little bit about your mom and dad, because your dad was in the resistance.
Yes, he was in 1943, he was in the resistance, and he was the Secretary General of the movement against the Germans and against the situation that was created in the northern Transylvania, and it was a turmoil in the Second World War there. So, as you know, in 1944, in my city of birth, that was a lot of Jewish people, and they were deported to Auschwitz. So I know what it means, the Holocaust, and I know the suffering of that people, and I grew up with many of the children born after the Holocaust, and I have many friends in the Jewish community, even though that I am not Jewish. But my father, for example, attended the commercial, the trade school and the trade high school, and he was he was attending this school, and he was the only Gentile in the class. So, you know, in Transylvania, in Romania, and in that part of the world, we have had a great tradition to live with other people, with other faiths. So for me, probably nobody knows, but Transylvania was a principality. It was the first country in the world who decreed the freedom of religion in 1567.
Huh.
So a lot of people, they don't know this one. So, but for this is the reason that my grandmother was Protestant, my grandfather Catholic. So, you know, a lot of mixture that it is not very usual in the other parts of the world. So,
how did it affect you growing up then, having seen a father who was so actively involved in trying to fight for the forces of good, and growing up, as you said, with children who...
Yes, you know, the forces of good fighting against the Nazis, but after they did come the communist regime, which was very similar in actions like the Nazis. You know, if you are looking at the Nazis, they were called National Socialismus. And the communists were very close as an ideology to the Nazis, in the way that they were promoting dictatorialships and the lack of personal freedoms and so on. So my father was involved. He was marginalized, obviously, in the new regime, and he was listening very carefully to the Radio Free Europe, Radio London, and BBC. So I was growing up in my crib with interest in politics somehow.
Right. Yeah.
So.
So it's. What about your mom? Was she also as interested in politics?
My mom was less interested in politics, but she was one of the, let's see, one of the women who were highly educated. She graduated in 1936 from the university. So that was, in 1936, it was not a usual things for women to get university education.
What was her degree in?
A degree was in Romanian language and German language, but she was Hungarian.
Oh, really?
So my father was from Romanian origin, but with deep roots in Transylvania. So my mother was from Hungarian origin. So
how did they meet?
They met they were from the same region of the country, which was called Salaj County. So it was quite interesting how they met. They met when my father was in politics. He was a so-called, had a function there in the capital city of the county, and my mother was teacher there. So in this way they met.
You were an only child.
I am the only child.
You are an only child, yeah. Did it affect you in any way growing up, or was it a positive experience?
It was an extremely positive experience, you know, to have, unfortunately, I have had only one grandmother. Yeah. So, and my grandmother basically educated me, took care of me in the family. So,
right.
And it was very interesting that I was not speaking Romanian language till I was 6 years old. I was speaking Hungarian. So my grandmother was telling, she was also a teacher, she was telling, you know, you need to send him at the Romanian school because he will have more opportunities to get in jobs and so on. So it was a wise advice. So I was bilingual, technically.
But you went to the Romanian school without speaking any Romanian?
Yes, and I learned there in the school.
Right.
So when we are speaking about the official languages in Canada, I'm a great promoter of French and English. And I'm looking at these things like a great advantage for our country.
Sure, I can understand why, because you've lived it.
Yes.
Yeah. You were educated in Romania, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I had a degree I went to the university, and I got a degree in engineering, engineering physics.
Why? I mean, was
because it my father was...
Your father told you to do it?
No.
Okay.
Because my mother was a teacher of languages, right? And my father was a commercial, a lawyer, and involved in trade and commerce. So I decided to do the opposite.
Okay.
Now I got it back from my daughter. She became a lawyer.
Okay.
So
good. That's good. So at least fulfilled some family dream there.
Yes.
Yeah. You moved to Italy, and then you
Yes.
moved to Canada.
Yes, I got married. You know, my father from Romanian origin, my mother Hungarian. So to avoid any kind of conflict,
Yes.
I married an Italian.
Okay, good.
So I was working at the Italian embassy, Italian Trade Commission in Bucharest, and
Yes.
after
As an engineer?
At the beginning, I was a researcher, and after I went to work at the Italian Trade Commission
Okay.
for exchange of technologies on the technological field. And in fact, my first contact with Canada, because I didn't even dream that I will be in Canada, it was the first contact that I have with Canada. It was at the construction of the nuclear power plant in Chernobyl, which is a Canadian technology.
Huh.
It's one of the most. It is the only Canadian technology in Europe, and it's an extremely successful nuclear power plant.
Wow.
So I was there at the beginning of the negotiation with the Italian side, which was working together with the Canadians. And after I decided that, you know, we need to move on. So I have had, in Italy, I have an apartment in Caserta. So I moved with my wife to Caserta.
And you met her at the embassy?
I met her in Romania. She was a lecturer of Italian at the University of Bucharest.
Wow.
So, and I was, you know, so...
Your mother must have been thrilled that you found someone who had an interest in
yes,
languages.
but unfortunately she passed away. Both passed away in very early stage. So in 1976, we get married in 1978. So they just barely knew my wife.
That's unfortunate.
So, and the story of my wife, she was the daughter of a general, an Italian general who fought in Africa, and he stayed in Africa for 12 years.
Wow.
So the funny thing was that when I met him, he was telling me, I don't want to see chicken. I don't want to eat chicken anymore, because 12 years in Africa, 6 years in the army,
Yeah.
fighting against the Italians, they were on the other side,
Yeah.
and 6 years in prison, a British prison, so he spoke perfectly English, and the fact was that he had good memories about Africa.
Right.
So he was in Kenya, Somalia, and he had this kind of good feelings about Africa, and then when he came back, you know, the food was only chicken, chicken, chicken. So he didn't want to see any more chicken. But like a military person, because he was a career military, he was precisely eating at 12:30. So nobody bothered his timings. So he was a very great person.
You and your wife moved to Canada then?
Yes.
From Italy?
Because, as you know, in the 78, 79, that was a huge turmoil in Italy. Red brigades, Meinhof brigades, black brigades, terrorist attacks. They kidnapped the prime minister of Italy and they killed him. So it was a way that you were not secure of what is going on, and you know, when you are establishing a family, you are looking for places to live. Back in Romania, it was we never thought that the communist was, Ceausescu was there, and the situation started to deteriorate in the way that it is unbelievable to understand for this situation from other people.
Right.
So we decided to move somewhere. So I made an application for, as an engineer, I was already an engineer. So I made an application to Canada and Australia.
Yes.
Canada came first, so
And
I
that's
came
where
to
you
Canada.
Isn't that funny how sometimes it's just
You never know.
A simple thing like that, a simple, you know, the letter arrived first, or
You see, I'm saying the things. You know where you were born, but you never know where you will die.
You're absolutely right.
So it is something, you know, is interesting. You know, I have a certain age, so I'm thinking about, you know, looking behind you, what you have done in your life and so on.
You've done quite a bit, because when you came to Canada, you continued as an engineer.
Yeah, I continued as an engineer. I was still working. I was working at the Italian Trade Commission, but I have done a Master of Engineering degree at the University of Toronto. I became a licensed professional engineer, and I enrolled in the Army because...
Yeah, why?
Because I
Was it just
always
one day?
liked to be in the Army.
Wow.
But I liked the Army. So, and one thing was...
As a full-time member of the Army?
I was in the reserve at the beginning.
Right.
So, and to learn, and you know, I was thinking about, okay, it's the way also to get back to the country, because the country who so generously accepted me to be here and to serve.
So let's talk about when you first arrived in Canada, because you had experienced a lot of things in different countries already in your life, and then you arrived in Canada where the language is different. And although you weren't unaccustomed to different languages, I mean, you would have had Hungarian, Romanian, Italian.
I have had the fortune to learn English, but before, because I was in the technical field, and I was enrolled also on my PhD in new sources of energy, and basically I was doing my PhD in semiconductor devices and amorphous semiconductor devices. Okay, so and all the literature was in English.
Okay,
so
but that doesn't sound like it's
not,
the kind of English that you would use when you're just having a conversation.
Yes, but that is much an easier language to learn than the technical language.
Okay.
So it was easier to adapt.
Okay.
And the fact is this one: if you know one or more languages, to learn another language is much easier.
So you had a good leg up then?
Because you are thinking about, you always, if you know the language well, you need to think in that language. Mm-hmm. So when I'm speaking Hungarian, I'm thinking in Hungarian. When I'm speaking Romanian, I'm thinking in the Romanian. Italian the same, and English the same. And now I'm doing French. So,
do you find it hard, though? Because I know if I'm in an environment where I have to speak a different language for any length of time, after a while it becomes normal, but in the first little bit, it's exhausting. Do you find it exhausting to function in a different language?
No, I can change very quickly from one language to another, because if you have the knowledge of the language, the deep knowledge of the language, it is not a problem. Mm. You will have the problem when you are not really ready to speak the language, and you feel that is not, you have difficulties at that time. But when you are speaking fluently, you can switch from languages without any problem.
Let's go back to your time in the Army, because you were the oldest person to serve in Afghanistan. Is that right?
I think so. I believe so. I was, let's go back a little bit. In 1990, I joined the reserves. And in 2003, I decided to join the regular force. Because for me, or you are a reserve, which is you are having a job differently than the Army, and you are serving the community in the way that you have a job and you are dedicating your time to serve in the Army. That is the real reserve.
Right.
Or you are going in the regular force. So that is also a Class B called reserve, in which you are contracted by the Army, but you are in the uniform, but you stay on the location, but you are not moving. So I decided, okay, it's time to go in the reg force. So I took every, things which are going with the reg force, moving from one place or the other in the country.
I just have to stop you. Did anyone say, you know, why are you making this decision at this stage in your life? Or this doesn't, is this really what you want? Did anyone say that to you?
People were wondering, what you are doing. So, but they respected my decision. So they were asking why you are doing this. So because I liked the Army. So I I joined the Rec Force, and after a couple of months, I ended up in Bosnia and Herzegovina for 1 year.
Wow.
Which was, again, a great experience, because I was in Banja Luka in the Northwest Brigade, and I was working with the British, with the Americans, with the Romanians, with the Hungarians. So it was an interesting experience, but not only experience, but also it was a way to show that we Canadians, we have many skills.
Right. Were people impressed, particularly the Hungarians and the Romanians that you were running into over there, by the fact that you were a Canadian, originally from their home countries, who was serving in the army and now back helping other people? And
yes, it was very interesting, because both of these countries, they were now from the foe, they were transforming themselves in allies,
right,
in the NATO.
Sure.
So it was a great opportunity to share experience and to bring up these new allies also to our standards and
right,
so on. And that was a great experience.
You would have been seeing awful things too, though. Did that leave an impact on you?
Yes, less in Bosnia and Herzegovina. That you have seen the destruction of the houses. It was the end of the civil war. Still houses, minefields everywhere. Still the hatred between different religious groups, because in Bosnia it was basically it was a religious war. The Croats, they were Catholics, the Serbs, they were Orthodox, and the Muslims, they were Muslims, the Bosniaks. So you can see how quickly families can be torn apart, and how momentarily madness can make this kind of destruction, the destruction of family homes and so on, that it is something unbelievable which I have seen.
So was it partly that experience that led you to decide to go into politics?
Partly, yes, because when I retired from the army, I retired in 2009, and actually I retired in 2009 because 2009 was my age retirement. So you are retiring on your 60th birthday.
Okay.
So when I was in Afghanistan, I was 58. But, physically fit, no problem about it. When I retired from the army, I contacted my MP and so on, and he was supposed to send me a scroll, or you know how this,
right.
We like scrolls and so on. So he was not very receptive on this one. It was receptive. My colleague from the neighboring riding, which we have known, because I always like politics, so and I had an experience in various parties as a learning experience. I started to join the Liberals, then I went to Reform, Alliance, and after stop, because you are in the army, in the Rec Force, and you cannot do politics.
Right.
So, viewing this, I thought, look, I was working as a professional engineer at the Geneva, which is a large engineering company, as a project manager.
Yeah.
So I thought, why should I not start to think about how to build up the community which I'm living for 30 years, and I don't see nothing going on, no jobs, no new initiatives and so on, and I decided, okay, I put my name. No, obviously no chances. The incumbent was Dan McTeague, a very nice person, so I don't have any personal problems or let's see, issues with him. He's a very nice, we talked. But the fact is this one, that you need to pay attention to your constituents, and I think that that was starting to lack in my community. So I decided, okay, it's time to do something for it, because I like to help people. I have done always in my life, and so I thought, okay, my ideas basically are restraint in spending, and so I identify myself in the Conservative Party, and actually I have seen the transformation of the Conservative Party, the reform and the conservative, the progressive Conservative Party merging, and a new area, a new let's see, a new word emerging in this field.
But you didn't think you'd win?
No, in fact, but I approached the campaign as a military person. I started to do the planning. I didn't have had an EDA, active EDA, and that was in 2010. So I started to put forward my ideas. At the beginning, it was just thinking about, and after I was telling it,
and then
it
you
became
started
more and
getting a
more
reaction.
serious. So I planned the election, so I was following politics, always following politics, because I like to follow and to see what is going on around you. And I planned the election. It had 2 dates, and I remember it was 2nd of May or 9th of May. And I chose the most critical, which was 2nd of May. So I planned backwards. So when I was nominated, because that was also an issue, who you are, we don't know, but okay, you can stay, no problem. No counter candidates, because nobody wanted to run against one of the most, let's see,
So you were nominated in a...
I was nominated in February, end of February, but you know, it was one of the safest liberal seats. So I was working backwards. So the first literature that I sent it by mail, by regular mail, it was my CV, who I am. And when the election was called after 3 weeks, I resended the same CV with a stamp inside, approved by the election agent. So, and from that time, you know, you started to meet people, to canvass. I didn't have had a telephone system, so I have had an internet telephone system. And I was basically renting an office which was looking like a junkyard. So they were, yeah, this is your office, yeah.
You know, it's impressive that it all managed to work out then, because you did, in fact, and I don't mean to, I have to wrap it up because we're running out of time, but you did, in fact, manage to go on and defeat an incumbent member of parliament who was very popular within his own party, and I'm glad it happened, because this way we had a chance to have our conversation today, but congratulations. And
thank you very much.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you, and I would like to thank my country, Canada, who gave me this opportunity also to be in one of the position of highly elected position in the country.
It's great to chat with you.
I am very much serving the country.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.